Emma Carter never imagined the night her world would shatter would begin so quietly. The winter sun was sinking behind the Manhattan skyline, turning the glass towers along the Hudson River into fading strips of gold. Inside the apartment she once believed was her safe place, she held her 7-month-old son Noah against her chest. His tiny fingers curled around the sleeve of her soft cardigan, and for a moment she believed she could breathe. But that peace collapsed the second her husband Michael burst through the door, slamming it so hard the sound echoed like a warning she could no longer ignore. He didn't look at Emma first. He looked at his phone, glowing with a video call from Ava, the young woman he had been mentoring at work. Emma had seen the messages weeks earlier, lines of flirty emojis and late-night promises, but she had swallowed the truth because she was exhausted, pregnant, and terrified of what would happen if she confronted him. Now Ava's voice poured out through the tiny speaker, trembling with faux innocence as she complained that Emma had texted her earlier, simply asking Michael to come home before the snowstorm got worse. Emma didn't even understand how a harmless message could trigger such rage in the man she used to trust. Michael stepped toward her, his breath sharp with anger, his eyes narrowing in a way that made her instinctively hold Noah tighter. She tried to stay calm, tried to remind him the baby was in her arms, but he wasn't listening. He hissed that she was ruining his life, embarrassing him, making him look weak in front of someone who actually respected him. Emma felt her stomach twist, not from the pregnancy but from the realization that the man she married no longer saw her as a partner, only an obstacle. She whispered for him to stop, to lower his voice, to think of Noah, but her words vanished in the air like snowflakes melting on warm skin. Then the moment that changed everything hit without warning. Michael reached out, not to take Noah, but to yank the phone from Emma's hand, even though she wasn't holding one. The sudden motion made her step back, and her foot caught the edge of the playmat. Noah let out a startled cry as Emma lost her balance. She reached for the counter, but Michael shoved her shoulder in the heat of his fury, and her body tilted backward. The world spun, the floor rushed up, and the back of her head slammed against the hardwood with a crack that stole her breath and blurred the ceiling lights into trembling halos. Noah's cries pierced the apartment as she tasted iron and fear on her tongue. Michael froze for a second, as if shocked by his own strength, but the fear in his face vanished quickly when Ava's voice rose again from the phone still lying on the coffee table. Emma tried to push herself upright, her vision swimming, Noah screaming beside her. She could feel something warm sliding down the back of her neck, and she prayed it wasn't blood. She reached for Noah, terrified he might crawl toward Michael, but her arm trembled too hard to lift. Michael took a step back, then another, as if he was already crafting the story he would tell, how she slipped, how she was emotional, how nothing was his fault. And in that horrible silence, the hallway elevator dinged, followed by the familiar voice of her father calling her name. And when he stepped inside, everything began to unravel. Emma Carter had always been the kind of woman people trusted instantly. At 29, she carried a gentle calm that came from surviving life's storms without ever letting bitterness win. Born and raised in Ohio, she grew up in a modest neighborhood where her father, the man who taught her strength without shouting, served as a respected police officer for 3 decades. Her mother passed away when Emma was still a teenager, leaving her with a quiet resilience that shaped the way she viewed the world. She learned early on that kindness didn't mean weakness, and patience didn't mean surrender. But somewhere along the path to adulthood, as she chased her dreams in New York City, she lost the ability to protect herself from one thing: love that hurt more than it healed. She moved to Manhattan at 25 with a suitcase, a few college textbooks, and her late mother's necklace tucked inside a small jewelry pouch. She worked her way up from assistant to financial consultant, often staying late in the office typing reports on her MacBook Air while the city glowed below her. Her coworkers admired her soft-spoken intelligence. Clients trusted her. She saved every extra dollar, making sure she never had to call home for help. Independence wasn't just a goal, it was the way she honored her mother's memory. Then Michael Carter entered her life. He was charming in that polished Manhattan way, confident smiles, tailored suits, a gentle tone that felt safe. He brought her Starbucks coffee during her morning shifts, laughed at her small jokes, and told her he saw a future with her long before she even imagined one for herself. Emma didn't fall fast, but she fell deeply. And for a time, Michael made her believe she had found something steady, something real. Their wedding was small, held in a warm garden in Brooklyn. Her father stood beside her, proud and steady, believing his daughter had chosen a good man. Emma looked beautiful, simple lace dress, soft curls framing her hopeful face. Everyone thought Michael adored her. Everyone thought she would be cherished. But what people saw wasn't the truth that slowly crept into her life after the wedding vows faded. Michael changed, first subtly, then unmistakably. He criticized her cooking, her clothes, her tone. He questioned where she went, who she talked to, why she didn't answer the phone fast enough. He began treating her career as a hobby, suggesting she should stay home for the baby's sake when she told him she was pregnant. Emma tried to understand, tried to remind herself that stress made people act strangely. But what she didn't see, what she couldn't admit, was that he was grooming her to become smaller, quieter, easier to control. Still she tried. For the marriage, for the child growing inside her, for the promise she thought she made to her mother to build a peaceful life. And when Noah was born, tiny, warm, perfect, she believed motherhood might soften Michael again. She believed he would return to the man she first met. But instead, the distance grew colder. Michael began spending late nights at the office, arriving home with excuses that didn't match the cologne scent lingering on his shirt. Emma confronted him once, gently, asking if something was wrong. He exploded. She apologized, even though she didn't understand why she was apologizing. Her father noticed the change in her voice during their weekly calls. She avoided questions. She forced laughter. She hid bruises beneath sweaters and told herself they were accidents. She loved Michael, but the love was beginning to feel like standing barefoot on broken glass. Quiet pain, sharp truth. And on the night he shoved her, on the night she hit the floor with Noah crying beside her, Emma finally realized the truth she had been afraid to speak. She was not living a marriage. She was surviving it. And in that moment, she knew her father was about to see everything she had tried so hard to hide. Setting, the main environment. The Carter apartment sat on the 23rd floor of a sleek glass building overlooking the Hudson River, a place Emma once believed marked the beginning of a life she had worked so hard to earn. When she first moved in, she remembered standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the lights of Manhattan blink like scattered stars. She thought the apartment would become a warm home filled with soft conversations, quiet dinners, and a future full of gentle mornings. But over time, every room slowly collected memories she wished she could erase. What was once a sanctuary had turned into a maze of unspoken fears, each corner holding its own ghost. The living room was spacious, decorated in neutral tones Michael insisted on: charcoal, cream, and cool gray. Emma once added a small plant near the window, hoping it would bring life to the room, but Michael removed it, claiming it cluttered the space. The soft rug under the coffee table was one she had chosen herself, a muted blue pattern that reminded her of Ohio skies. She loved that rug, even though it was where she fell earlier that night, her head striking the hardwood just inches from it. Now, every thread seemed to carry the weight of something broken. The kitchen was modern, white marble counters glowing under recessed lighting. Emma had baked tiny blueberry muffins there on weekends, each batch cooling beside her Kindle resting quietly on the counter while Noah napped. It was also where Michael often slammed cabinet doors when he was angry, each bang echoing through the walls. She learned to move quietly in that kitchen, learned which drawers creaked, learned how to prepare dinner before he got home so she wouldn't slow him down. Their bedroom overlooked the shimmering river, a view Emma adored. But beauty meant little when fear shared the space. The bed felt too big for the silence that stretched between them. Her maternity pillow lay on one side, and she often slept curled around it while Michael stayed out late, claiming long meetings or client dinners. She rarely asked questions anymore. Asking meant inviting conflict, and conflict always led to the same outcome: Michael towering over her, voice sharp enough to cut. Noah's nursery was the only room still untouched by darkness. Soft white curtains framed the window. A little wooden mobile hung above the crib, spinning quietly whenever the wind slipped through the vent. Emma spent countless nights rocking him in the cream-colored chair her father mailed from Ohio in an Amazon box. She would hum to him, hoping her voice hid the fear she swallowed. She wanted him to feel safe, even if she didn't. The hallway outside the apartment echoed differently that night. Every step, every distant elevator chime felt colder, sharper. Snowflakes collected on the balcony rail, the kind of gentle snowfall that made Manhattan feel almost calm. Inside, though, calm no longer existed. The apartment held the heavy energy of a place that had finally witnessed too much. The storm outside grew stronger, wind brushing against the glass panels. Emma remembered how she used to watch storms with Michael in their early days, how they'd sit together wrapped in a blanket. Now the storm felt more like a reflection of the chaos inside the walls. Her world had narrowed to these rooms, and every surface seemed to hold the memory of a moment she wished never happened. Yet it was this same apartment that held the first proof of Michael's lies. The lipstick stain on a wine glass left in the sink one night, the unfamiliar perfume scent clinging to his jacket, the muted blush scarf Ava accidentally left on the sofa. Emma had cleaned those things quietly, hiding the truth from herself. But tonight, the truth stood in the open, raw and undeniable. And just when she thought the walls could not hold any more tension, the elevator chimed again. This time louder, sharper. Because the moment her father stepped into that hallway, the apartment was about to become the stage for everything Michael had tried to hide. Introduction of the antagonist. Michael Carter. Michael Carter was the type of man who knew exactly how to present himself to the world. At 32, he wore confidence like a second skin. His coworkers at the financial firm on Park Avenue admired him. Clients praised his sharp instincts and polished charm. He carried himself like someone who believed success was his birthright. Luxury watches, crisp suits, and the smooth confidence of a man who never expected consequences. To outsiders, he looked like the perfect husband, successful, attractive, articulate. But people who admired him only ever saw the version he crafted, not the one that lurked behind closed doors. Before marriage, Michael treated Emma with a tenderness that felt disarming. He opened doors, sent good morning messages, and listened closely when she spoke about her mother. But marriage changed the tone. He began correcting the way she spoke in public, telling her she needed to appear more polished if she wanted to fit his lifestyle. At first, Emma mistook the criticism for care. It wasn't until much later she realized it was control disguised as guidance. With time, Michael grew more irritable. He claimed stress from work, claimed he carried too many responsibilities, claimed Emma didn't appreciate how hard he worked to maintain their life. He made her feel guilty for small things, leaving a light on, spending too long at the grocery store, calling her father without telling him. She tried to adjust, tried to be gentler, quieter, more patient. But nothing she did was enough. The real shift came when Ava Reynolds entered his office as a new junior assistant. 24, bright-eyed, eager to impress, Ava fed Michael's ego in a way Emma never would. She laughed too loudly at his jokes, complimented his suits, and made herself available for every late-night meeting. Michael soaked it in. He loved the attention, loved feeling admired, loved the way Ava looked at him like he was extraordinary. And slowly, he began slipping further away from his wife. The woman who stood by him through long nights, financial struggles, and the first months of motherhood. Michael convinced himself he deserved something exciting, something refreshing. He told himself he was trapped in a home where Emma only complained or worried. He manipulated reality until he believed his own lies, that the marriage was failing because Emma wasn't trying, because she wasn't fun anymore, because motherhood made her too sensitive. He never acknowledged the truth. Emma was exhausted from doing everything alone while he chased affection elsewhere. Ava played her role perfectly. She sent Michael late-night texts pretending to need help with office projects. She wore soft perfume that lingered on his collar when he returned home. She left small hints, a bracelet on his car seat, a forgotten silk scarf in his office, knowing Emma would notice. And when Michael started blaming Emma for being paranoid, Ava comforted him, making herself appear innocent, supportive, misunderstood. The darker side of Michael emerged when he realized Emma was beginning to sense the affair. His temper sharpened. His voice rose faster. He pushed boundaries further, knowing Emma was isolated, pregnant, and afraid to leave. He gaslit her relentlessly, insisting she imagined things, twisting her doubts into weapons against her. And the night of the incident, when Ava called him crying that Emma had texted her a simple, harmless message, it ignited something ugly inside him. He stormed into the apartment, convinced Emma was trying to sabotage him. The rage that built inside him was not about love or jealousy, it was about control slipping from his hands. Emma's small act of self-respect felt like betrayal to a man who relied on dominance to feel powerful. He didn't plan to hurt her, not consciously. But Michael's anger had become its own creature, one that grew larger every time Ava fed his ego. And when Emma fell, when her head hit the floor, when Noah cried from fear, Michael saw something he did not expect. The possibility that he had crossed a line even he could not explain away. He stepped back, breath shaking, mind twisting for excuses. Then, as Ava's voice crackled through the phone, he steadied himself. He would lie. He would manipulate. He would claim Emma slipped. He would do anything to protect his reputation. Because Michael Carter wasn't afraid of what he had done, he was afraid of being exposed. Public breakdown. The incident unfolds. The moment Emma hit the hardwood floor, the world seemed to split into two versions of reality. The truth she lived and the lie Michael was already preparing to tell. Her vision blurred, colors melting together as she tried to keep Noah from crawling toward the chaos. A sharp ringing filled her ears, her heartbeat thudding in uneven waves. Pain exploded at the back of her head, but her first instinct wasn't to cry out. It was to shield her son. She reached trembling fingers toward him, whispering his name even as her breath came in shallow gasps. Michael stood frozen for a moment, shock flickering across his features before something colder took over. He straightened, smoothing his shirt, running a hand through his hair as if preparing for a meeting. His eyes darted between Emma on the floor and the phone still glowing with Ava's face. Ava's voice trembled with false worry, asking if everything was okay, insisting she didn't mean to cause trouble, pretending innocence. But underneath her tone was a quiet satisfaction, a sweetness too deliberate to be genuine. Emma forced herself upright, gripping the edge of the sofa for support as she winced from the dizziness. The hardwood beneath her felt icy against her bare feet. Noah whimpered beside her, confused and frightened. She pulled him close, her body shielding his tiny frame. She could feel something warm trickling along her neck. She didn't need to touch it to know it was blood. "Look what you did," Michael snapped, pointing at the injury like it was her fault. "You fell again, Emma. I told you to be careful." She stared at him, disbelief tightening her chest. "You pushed me." Her voice came out faint, breathy, but the truth clung to every syllable. Michael's expression hardened instantly. "No, you lost your balance. Don't start with your dramatic stories." Typical. He was rewriting the moment before it had even settled into memory. That was how he worked, fast, forceful, confident. He stepped toward her again, and instinctively she flinched, pulling Noah closer. Michael noticed the flinch. His jaw clenched. "You're not doing this," he hissed. "Not with the baby watching, not with Ava hearing everything." Emma felt something inside her snap, fear mixed with exhaustion, rising like a tide she could no longer hold back. "The baby is always watching," she whispered. "He sees everything." Michael scoffed, grabbing his coat. "I'm done with this. I'm going to step out until you calm down." But before he could reach the door, a heavy knock shook the apartment, followed by a stern voice echoing through the hallway. "NYPD, open the door." Michael froze. His eyes widened for the first time that night. Emma's heart lurched. She knew that voice, not just the authority in it, but the familiar tone beneath. Her father. Michael whipped around, panic breaking through his mask. "You called the police?" Emma shook her head weakly. "I didn't. I couldn't even reach my phone." The knocking grew louder. "Michael Carter, open the door now." Her father must have felt something was wrong. He always did. Maybe he sensed it during the call earlier. Maybe a neighbor heard the commotion. Whatever the reason, he was here. Robert Miller, retired officer, a man who never ignored danger when it came to someone he loved. Michael swallowed hard, but it was too late. He opened the door reluctantly, and her father stepped inside with 2 officers behind him. The moment Robert saw Emma on the floor, holding Noah, blood trailing down her neck, his entire face hardened with a rage she had never seen, not even during the hardest days of his service. "What did you do to my daughter?" Robert demanded, stepping between Emma and Michael like a shield. Michael lifted his hands defensively. "She slipped. But the officers were already surveying the room. Emma's tremble, Noah's cries, the overturned playmat, the red mark on her shoulder. Her father knelt beside her, touching her cheek gently. "Honey, look at me. Are you hurt?" Emma's voice shook. "He pushed me." And in that single confession, the room shifted. No longer controlled by Michael's narrative, no longer hidden beneath excuses, because now the truth had witnesses, and Michael's lies were beginning to crumble. Temporary collapse, Emma's breakdown. The moment the officers stepped farther into the apartment, Emma felt the weight of the night settling on her chest like 1,000 bricks. Noah whimpered against her shoulder, sensing the tension in the room. Her father's presence should have made her feel safe, but instead it unleashed something deeper. Months of fear, exhaustion, and humiliation she had buried so deeply she almost forgot what it felt like to let herself feel anything. Her throat tightened. Her breaths turned shallow. She clutched Noah closer, terrified that if she loosened her grip even slightly, her entire world would fall apart right there on the floor. Robert gently slipped an arm around her, helping her sit upright. "Honey, it's okay. I've got you. You're safe now." Safe. The word echoed in her mind, unfamiliar and impossible. She hadn't felt safe in months, maybe years. But hearing it now from her father broke something open. Tears filled her eyes, blurring the officers, the lamps, the living room walls she had learned to fear. The room swayed, and she pressed a shaky hand to the back of her head. Her palm came away with a smear of red. The sight of her own blood made her gasp. I don't feel right," she whispered. "Dad, I'm dizzy." Her father's arms tightened protectively. "You need a medic, now." Michael took a step forward as if to reclaim control. "She's fine. She's exaggerating. She always does this when she's emotional." One of the officers raised a hand sharply. "Sir, stand back." Emma felt her breath hitch. Emotional, dramatic, overreacting. Those were the words Michael used to shrink her until she barely recognized herself. Hearing them now triggered a wave of panic so strong she could barely breathe. "I didn't slip," she choked out. "He pushed me. He pushed me in front of Noah." Saying it aloud felt like ripping open a wound. Her shoulders trembled. Noah began to cry again, his small fists curling into her sweater. She rocked him instinctively, but her body felt weak, drained, shaking. Her father brushed a hand through her hair, checking the injury. "It's swelling," he muttered under his breath. "You could have a concussion." Emma felt the room tilt again. The officers' radios crackled softly. Snow tapped against the windows like impatient fingers. The air grew colder, heavier, pressing down on her. "I tried so hard," she whispered. "I tried to be patient. I tried to keep the peace. I thought I could fix it." Her father's voice softened. "Sweetheart, none of this is your fault." But guilt clung to her ribs like a second skin. She remembered the nights she cried alone in the kitchen, the mornings she hid bruises under makeup, the fear that if she ever told her father the truth, it would break him. She remembered the promises she made to her unborn child, the hope she carried like a small light through the darkness. And tonight, that light flickered dangerously. "I'm so tired," she whispered, tears streaming freely now. "I kept thinking he'd change. I kept thinking if I stayed calmer, quieter, he'd go back to the man he used to be." Her father shook his head. The man he used to be never existed. Emma's chest tightened. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by his words, by the truth she had refused to face. The younger officer knelt beside her. "Ma'am, we need to get you checked out immediately. Do you feel nauseous? Lightheaded?" Emma nodded weakly. "Both." Michael scoffed under his breath, but the officers ignored him. Her father didn't. He stepped forward, blocking Michael's view entirely. "You don't speak unless spoken to," he warned, voice low and deadly calm. Emma felt another wave of tears rising. Grief, shame, relief, all tangled together. Her hands shook uncontrollably as she tried to adjust Noah against her. "I don't want him near the baby," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her father glanced at the officers. "You heard her." Emma leaned into her father's shoulder as paramedics were called, her breathing ragged, her heart thudding painfully. She felt like a fragile shell of herself, as if one wrong word could shatter her. And yet, beneath the fear, there was something else. Something small but steady. The beginning of a truth she could no longer deny. She didn't deserve this life. She didn't deserve this pain. And as the paramedics approached, Emma sensed the moment that would change everything was coming next. Twist. The hidden truth revealed. As the paramedics eased Emma onto the stretcher, her father holding Noah close, the tension in the apartment thickened until even the air felt heavy. Michael paced near the kitchen, running a hand through his hair, muttering half-formed excuses under his breath. He kept glancing at the officers, calculating, trying to find the angle that would clear him. He was good at lying. Too good. But tonight something was different. Tonight, the truth had slipped through cracks he didn't realize were widening. Emma winced as a paramedic pressed lightly around the swelling at the back of her head. "Ma'am, we need to bring you to the ER, he said gently. "You might have a concussion." Her eyelids fluttered. I just want my baby safe." Robert handed Noah to an officer temporarily so he could walk beside Emma. But even in that brief moment, Noah reached for Emma with tiny, desperate hands. It nearly broke her heart. She couldn't bear for him to grow up around this kind of fear. Michael finally snapped. "This is ridiculous." She slipped. "Tell them, Emma." Her father turned slowly, the kind of slow that promised trouble. "You put one more ounce of pressure on her, and I swear." "Dad," Emma whispered, her voice raspy. "Stop. Please." She wasn't protecting Michael. She was protecting herself from more chaos, more shouting, more emotional traps she'd been caught in for years. But then, right when she thought she was too exhausted to confront another moment of this nightmare, one of the officers cleared his throat. "Sir, we need to ask you a few questions. You said your wife slipped. Can you show us exactly where?" Michael gestured vaguely toward the rug. "There. She just tripped." "And did you attempt to catch her?" "She fell too fast." Emma closed her eyes. That wasn't true. He pushed her when she was holding their baby. She could still feel the pressure on her shoulder, the shock of it. But trauma had a way of stealing your voice when you needed it most. Then came the sound that shattered Michael's composure, a soft ding from an officer's body cam. "Sir," the officer said, "earlier tonight your neighbor called 911 reporting yelling, a thud, and a woman screaming." Michael stiffened. "She's always exaggerating. She complains about everything." But the officer wasn't finished. "She also recorded the audio from her hallway. We've already heard part of it." Michael paled. Emma opened her eyes slowly, confusion mixing with fear. "She recorded it?" "Yes, ma'am," the officer said gently. "And there's more. Your building's hallway camera caught your husband yelling as he entered the apartment." Her father exhaled a breath that sounded like a prayer of gratitude mixed with fury. The officer continued, "And we have something else." He lifted a plastic evidence bag. Inside was Emma's phone. This phone was found under the coffee table. It had an ongoing video call when we arrived. Emma blinked. "Ava's call?" "Yes, and the audio captured part of the incident." Michael lunged toward the officer. "You can't use that. It's invasion." "It's evidence," the officer corrected sharply, "and it supports your wife's statement." Emma's breath caught. That small detail, the accident of Ava calling, the phone falling, the ongoing call capturing the chaos, felt like fate stepping in. She had spent months feeling invisible, unheard. Now the truth was spilling into the open in a way Michael could no longer control. Her father rested a hand on her shoulder. "Honey, everything's going to be different now." Different. The word wrapped around Emma like a blanket. For the first time in so long, she wasn't fighting alone. Michael's voice rose again, desperate now. "Emma, tell them you overreacted." But she didn't feel small anymore. She didn't feel silenced. She didn't feel crazy. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "I didn't slip." The entire room stilled. She looked straight at Michael, no longer trembling. "You pushed me, and now everyone knows." And in that single moment of truth, the balance of power shifted, and Michael realized he was no longer the one in control. Rebirth. Emma's transformation. The harsh fluorescent lights of the emergency room flickered overhead as Emma lay on the hospital bed, her head wrapped in a soft bandage. The sounds around her blended into one constant hum. Nurses rolling carts, monitors beeping, doors opening and closing with tired groans. But for the first time in what felt like years, Emma wasn't afraid of the noise. She wasn't afraid of anything. Something inside her had shifted the moment she spoke the truth out loud. It was like a door she thought was locked forever suddenly swung open, letting in light she didn't realize she needed. Her father sat beside her, Noah sleeping peacefully in his arms. Robert watched her closely, the way only a father could, seeing pain, strength, guilt, and courage all tangled together. "You did the right thing tonight," he said quietly. "I'm proud of you." Emma swallowed hard. "I should have left sooner. I should have seen." "No," he shook his head firmly. "The blame isn't yours. It never was." Those words wrapped around her like a lifeline. She had spent so long believing she was the problem, that she wasn't enough, that she provoked the anger. But now, in this sterile hospital room, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: clarity. While the doctor checked her vitals, Emma stared at her reflection in the small metal panel beside the bed. Her face looked pale, tired, but there was something new in her eyes. A spark. A determination that had been buried but never extinguished. "Mrs. Carter," the doctor said gently, "you have a mild concussion, but you and the baby seem stable. You'll need rest and monitoring, and you shouldn't be alone for a while." Her father squeezed her hand. "She won't be." After the examination, a social worker came in to discuss options: protective orders, emergency housing, legal steps. At first, the words felt overwhelming. Papers, procedures, decisions. But then the social worker placed a simple brochure in her hand. The cover showed a sunrise over water. The title read, "You're Stronger Than You Think." Emma traced the letters with her finger. She remembered the nights she used to read self-help books on her Kindle, trying to find pieces of herself she had lost. Books like Women Who Run with the Wolves and The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F had once given her comfort. She hadn't touched those things in months. Michael always mocked her for them. But now she wanted them back. She wanted everything she abandoned to survive him. When the officers returned to update her, Emma sat up straighter. "We've detained your husband for the night," one said. "Based on the evidence, you have a strong case, and you're not required to see him or speak to him." She nodded slowly. "Good." Her father smiled faintly at her tone. It wasn't fear, it wasn't confusion, it was strength. Real, undeniable strength. Later that night, as snow continued to fall over Manhattan, Robert drove Emma and Noah to his small but warm townhouse across the river in New Jersey. The home smelled like pine and old books, comforting, steady, familiar. He set Noah's carrier beside the living room sofa and helped Emma inside. "You're staying here," he said, "as long as you need." Emma walked to the hallway mirror, touching the bandage at the back of her head. She didn't see a victim. She saw a survivor, a mother, a woman who had endured more than most could imagine and was still standing. She took a warm shower, letting the water wash away the night's terror. Afterward, she dressed in one of her father's soft flannel shirts, oversized and comforting. When she stepped into the small guest room, she noticed something on the nightstand. Her father had placed her Kindle there, already charging. She smiled through tired tears. "Thank you," she whispered. He kissed the top of her head. "This is your fresh start. You're going to rise from this." And as she lay in bed, Noah sleeping safely beside her, Emma felt the truth settle deep into her bones. She wasn't done. She wasn't broken. She was rebuilding. And soon, everyone, especially Michael, would see the woman she was becoming. Public revenge. Emma strikes back. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the thin curtains of her father's guest room, casting a soft glow across the blankets where Noah slept curled against her side. Emma woke slowly, her head throbbing, but her mind startlingly clear. For the first time in years, she wasn't waking up to fear. She wasn't listening for footsteps, wasn't bracing for criticism, wasn't rehearsing excuses to survive another day. Instead, she felt something new pulsing beneath her ribs. Purpose. Her father knocked gently before pushing the door open. "Morning, sweetheart. How's your head?" "Sore," she admitted, sitting up carefully. "But I'm okay." Robert placed a warm mug of coffee on the nightstand. Just the right amount of cream, exactly how she used to take it, before Michael insisted she drink it, black like an adult. She wrapped her hands around the mug, savoring the comfort. "We need to talk," her father said quietly. "The officers called this morning. Michael is out on bail." Emma didn't panic. Some small part of her expected this. Michael always found a way to slip through consequences. But this time, she wasn't the same woman he used to manipulate. "I'm pressing charges," Emma said before her father could ask. "And I'm not stopping there." Her father nodded, pride softening his stern features. "Good. I'll help you with every step." After breakfast, Emma sat at his dining table with her MacBook Air open, Noah asleep in a portable crib beside her. The screen glowed softly as she reviewed documents the social worker emailed. Emergency protective order, custody filings, assault charges. Each form felt like a piece of herself returning, one signature at a time. But that wasn't the only thing she planned. She wanted the truth exposed. Publicly. Completely. Michael's company was holding a mid-year financial gala that weekend at a luxury hotel in Manhattan. He had spent months preparing for it, rehearsing speeches, bragging about his promotion prospects. Investors, partners, executives, it was the night he thrived in the spotlight. And Emma realized it was the perfect place to unveil the truth he tried so hard to bury. Her father watched her eyes shift with determination. "Honey, what are you planning?" "Nothing illegal," she said softly, "but something he'll never forget." They spent the next 2 days gathering everything: hospital reports, photos of her injuries, audio from the hallway recording, the saved footage from Ava's accidental video call. Their lawyer helped assemble it into a file so detailed even Michael wouldn't be able to twist it. When Saturday arrived, Emma stood in her father's bedroom, wearing a dress she hadn't touched in years. Simple black, elegant, fitted enough to show her pregnancy bump in a dignified, powerful way. She curled her hair loosely and applied makeup with a steady hand. She didn't look like a victim walking into war. She looked like a woman reclaiming her voice. Her father drove her into Manhattan as dusk settled over the city, the skyline shimmering like a promise of renewal. The hotel rose tall and gleaming, its gold-trimmed entrance glowing beneath crystal lights. Wealthy guests stepped out of Mercedes and town cars, dressed in evening gowns and tailored suits. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with chatter, champagne glasses clinking, music drifting from elegant speakers. And there, near the stage, stood Michael, polished suit, confident smile, shaking hands as if nothing had happened. Until he saw her. He froze. Panic flickered across his face like a crack in glass. Emma stepped forward with calm grace, her father beside her like a silent wall of strength. Whispered gasps rippled through the crowd, the bandage at her hairline, her steady posture, the baby bump, all telling a story no one could ignore. Michael rushed toward her, voice low but frantic. "Why are you here? You shouldn't be here." She handed him the envelope. "Everything you've tried to hide is in there," she said softly, "and I made sure every board member gets a copy." He opened it, his face strained. Inside was every piece of evidence, undeniable, irrefutable, devastating. A silence fell across the ballroom as whispers spread like wildfire. Emma took a breath. "I'm done being afraid of you." And as Michael's empire began to crumble in front of everyone he once hoped to impress, Emma realized her power had finally returned. Inspiring ending. A new life begins. The ballroom had fallen silent after Michael opened the envelope, but for Emma, the silence carried something powerful: release. She stood there, breathing steadily, as if every painful moment she had endured was finally loosening its grip. Her father remained at her side, Noah's soft coos blending with the muffled music drifting from the speakers. People whispered, eyes wide, trying to understand how a man once praised for success could stand exposed so completely. Emma didn't shrink beneath the attention. She held her ground, remembering every night she cried, every bruise she hid, every fear she swallowed. Tonight, she reclaimed the pieces he tried to break. Michael attempted to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. Executives surrounding him stepped back, some exchanging uneasy glances, others shaking their heads in disappointment. His carefully crafted reputation was unraveling right before him. Emma watched him struggle, but she felt no triumph in his panic, only a calm certainty that this chapter was closing. She wasn't here to destroy him out of spite. She was here to tell the truth he spent years burying. And as she looked at him one last time, she realized something important. She no longer felt small in his presence. The woman he once controlled was gone, replaced by someone stronger than he ever imagined. Her father touched her arm gently. "Honey, it's time to go. She nodded, turning away from the chaos behind her. As she walked toward the exit, the weight she carried for so long seemed to lift with each step. Guests parted quietly, giving her space, some offering soft nods of respect. She felt their sympathy, but more than that, she felt her own rising courage. Outside, the cool night air brushed against her skin, fresh and reassuring. Manhattan's lights shimmered across the pavement, painting the city in gold. It felt like the world was opening again, offering her a chance to start over without fear pressing against her chest. In the following weeks, Emma found herself rebuilding a life that had once felt impossible. Her father's townhouse became a warm refuge where she healed slowly, learning to trust her instincts again. She met with her attorney regularly, securing full custody of Noah and finalizing charges against Michael. She returned to her job with quiet determination, welcomed back by colleagues who admired her resilience. She even began taking small evening walks with Noah bundled in his stroller, stopping at a nearby bookstore where she rediscovered the comfort of holding a good book in her hands. With each day, she grew stronger, her heart learning to exist without fear. One afternoon, while attending a support group recommended by her social worker, Emma met someone unexpected, a gentle, soft-spoken architect named Daniel, who had raised his daughter alone after losing his wife. He didn't ask intrusive questions or try to fix her. He simply listened, offering warm conversation and steady kindness. Their friendship grew naturally, carefully, like a garden tended with patience. Emma felt no rush, no pressure, only the quiet possibility of something good. She wasn't searching for love, but healing had a way of making room for new beginnings. And Daniel, with his calm presence and sincere smile, became a reminder that not all men were storms waiting to break her. One evening, standing on her father's porch with Noah asleep against her shoulder, Emma watched the sunset paint the sky in soft shades of orange. She breathed deeply, feeling peace settle into her bones. She had survived darkness, reclaimed her voice, and built a life shaped by courage rather than fear. Her journey wasn't perfect, but it was real. And as she looked toward the horizon, she whispered a promise to herself. She would raise her son to understand love, respect, and strength. She would never allow him to grow up thinking violence was normal. Because Emma Carter was no longer defined by what broke her, she was defined by how she rose. The weeks following the gala were a whirlwind, not just for Emma, but for Michael as well. The empire he had built on charm and manipulation began buckling under the weight of the truth. His company launched an internal investigation, and word of his arrest spread through Park Avenue like wildfire. Executives whispered behind closed doors, partners quietly removed their association, and clients questioned how they ever trusted a man so polished on the surface, yet so rotten beneath. Emma didn't gloat, but she couldn't deny the strange sense of balance returning to her life. For years she had lived under Michael's shadow, shrinking herself to fit inside his expectations. Now, as she watched him face consequences, she realized how many pieces of herself she had lost along the way, pieces she was finally reclaiming. She felt lighter, even on days when her concussion symptoms lingered. Her father reassured her constantly. "Healing takes time, honey. You're doing everything right." Michael, however, spiraled. When his firm placed him on unpaid suspension, he stormed out of the building, muttering about suing them for discrimination and overreaction. But the board members had already seen the evidence Emma provided. They saw Ava's voice caught on the video call. They saw the hallway footage of Michael arguing. They saw the medical report. There was nothing left for Michael to twist, no narrative he could manipulate. For once, the truth drowned out his lies. Ava herself tried to distance from him. She stopped answering his calls, stopped showing up for work, stopped allowing herself to be tied to a man whose reputation was dissolving in real time. Michael was furious, pacing through the small apartment he rented temporarily after being forced to leave the one Emma once called home. He sent Emma messages, ranging from apologies to accusations, but her father made sure none of them reached her. They blocked his number, handed everything to the attorney, and implemented the restraining order. Meanwhile, Emma focused on rebuilding her inner world. She attended therapy sessions twice a week, learning to unpack the trauma she carried in her shoulders, in her breath, in her bones. She journaled each night, writing letters to herself, letters reminding her she survived. She fought back, she won. Sometimes she cried, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of living a life where fear no longer hovered in doorways. One Saturday afternoon, as she sat with Noah in the living room, folding his tiny clothes from a warm laundry basket, she felt a soft knock at the door. Her father answered. Standing outside was a plainclothes detective with an envelope. Emma's heart tightened, but she stood tall. "It's official," the detective said gently. "Michael has been formally charged. Assault in the second degree, endangering the welfare of a child, violating a protective order. His hearing is scheduled for next month." Emma exhaled lentiment, as if releasing months, years of stored breath. "Thank you," she whispered. After the detective left, her father wrapped his arm around her. "This is justice, Emma. Real justice." But justice wasn't the only thing happening. Something else unfolded, quietly, slowly, beautifully. Daniel, the soft-spoken architect, began stopping by more often. Sometimes he brought soup, sometimes a small toy for Noah. Sometimes he simply sat at the table with her while she worked through legal documents. He didn't hover, he didn't push, he didn't ask for more than she could give. One evening he knocked gently and said, "I'm making pasta tonight. Thought I'd bring you some." Emma smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you, that's really kind." Her father raised an eyebrow with a half-smirk later. "Seems like someone enjoys your company." Emma blushed softly. "Dad, please." But even she couldn't deny it. Daniel wasn't a replacement for the love she lost. He was proof that good men existed, honest men, gentle men. And for the first time in a long time, she felt the beginning of hope, warm, fragile, but real. Because while Michael's world crumbled, Emma's was quietly beginning to bloom. The days that followed unfolded like soft ripples instead of crashing waves. For the first time in a long time, Emma woke each morning without trembling anticipation of anger or criticism. The townhouse felt warm and lived in, a place where the clock ticked gently and the air didn't carry tension. She made breakfast slowly, savoring the small rituals she once rushed through, mixing oatmeal, slicing fruit, humming to Noah as he kicked his little legs happily on the kitchen counter in his cushioned seat. Peace didn't feel foreign anymore. It felt like something she was finally allowed to experience. But healing wasn't linear. Some mornings she woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting she wasn't in the apartment with Michael. There were nights she startled awake from dreams where he appeared in doorways, yelling, accusing, towering over her. Her therapist reminded her gently, "Trauma lingers, but so does strength." Emma took that phrase to heart. She repeated it like a quiet mantra while learning to breathe through the fear that showed up uninvited. One afternoon, she decided to take Noah for a walk through her father's neighborhood. The cold air felt crisp and clean, wrapping around her like a fresh start. She zipped Noah into his thick stroller blanket and pushed him down the quiet sidewalks lined with old maples. She passed by a small Barnes & Noble, its windows glowing warmly. On impulse, she stepped inside. The smell of books hit her instantly. Paper, ink, nostalgia. She wandered through the aisles, letting her fingers brush gently along the spines. She picked up a new copy of Atomic Habits and another titled Healing After Trauma. Michael always dismissed her interest in self-help books, calling them a waste of time. But here, standing between neatly arranged shelves, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Permission. Permission to grow. Permission to learn. Permission to understand herself. A young female employee smiled at her. "You picked some good ones. Those helped me a lot." Emma returned the smile softly. "I think they'll help me too." When she got home, her father was building a small toy shelf for Noah in the living room. "Thought he could use his own space," he said proudly, even though Noah was still far too young to care. But Emma cared. She felt tears warm her eyes. "Dad, thank you." He shrugged, pretending not to be emotional. Just doing what dads do. In the evenings, Daniel sometimes joined them. He brought warm dishes, lasagna, roasted chicken, homemade soup, and often stayed just long enough to share a quiet conversation. He had a way of speaking that made Emma feel grounded, solid, seen. One night, as they sat on the porch wrapped in jackets, Daniel glanced at her gently. "You're doing better, Emma. You look lighter." She hesitated. "Some days are hard." "Hard is fine," he said. "Hard means you're moving." His voice held no pity, only understanding. That made her chest loosen. She wasn't used to a man who didn't want to fix her, just walk beside her. Noah babbled in her lap, reaching for Daniel's hand. Daniel laughed softly and let the tiny fingers grip his thumb. "Looks like someone approves of me," he joked. Emma smiled. "He doesn't warm up to everyone." "Guess I'm lucky then." There was no rush, no intensity. Daniel never pressured her for more time or more emotion. Instead, he created a space where she could simply exist without fear. And that, more than anything, felt like the beginning of something gentle and powerful. A different kind of love. Meanwhile, updates about Michael came through their attorney. His job had terminated him officially. Ava had filed her own statement, quietly distancing herself. The judge overseeing the case granted Emma temporary full custody, with a strong likelihood of it becoming permanent. The restraining order remained firm. Every piece of news made her feel steadier, as if the world was quietly stitching itself back together. One evening, after putting Noah to sleep, Emma stood at the window of the guest room, looking at the moonlit street. She wasn't thinking about Michael. She wasn't thinking about fear. She was thinking about the future, hers, Noah's, and the life she was building, one small choice at a time. Her reflection in the glass no longer looked fragile. It looked ready. Because healing wasn't just something happening to Emma. It was something she was choosing. Every single day. The more time Emma spent at her father's townhouse, the more she realized how deeply her father had been carrying his own quiet suffering. Robert Miller had always been a steady man, disciplined, observant, protective. But now that Emma was living under his roof again, she noticed the small signs of strain. The way he paused at her door each night to make sure she was asleep. The extra locks he installed on the windows. The way he positioned himself on the porch during evening hours, watching the street as if expecting something to appear out of the shadows. He never said it, but Emma knew one truth. Her father blamed himself for not protecting her sooner, and that guilt drove him with a fierce, steady force. One morning she found him at the dining table, burying himself in documents. Court papers, police reports, printed screenshots, transcripts from the hallway audio. His reading glasses sat low on his nose, and his jaw was tense. "Dad," Emma said softly, placing a cup of warm tea beside him. "You don't have to do all this alone." He didn't look up. "I should have seen it sooner. I should have known." Emma reached out and touched his hand. "You couldn't have known. I hid it. I thought I was handling it." He finally met her eyes. "A dad knows his child's voice, and yours changed. I should have pushed harder." Emma felt her throat tighten. "You came when it mattered most." He exhaled, shoulders loosening a little, "And I'm not done." Robert wasn't a man who sought revenge, but he believed in justice, the kind that ensured no one could harm his daughter again. He spent afternoons calling old contacts from his police department days, gathering advice, building a solid wall of support behind Emma's case. Former detectives, legal experts he trusted, even a retired judge who had always respected his integrity, they all offered guidance. One evening, Emma overheard him on the phone, his voice low but controlled. "Yes, sir. I want every detail of her statement recorded properly. She's been through enough." Emma held Noah close, listening to the fierce love woven into his voice. It was the same love that carried her through childhood, the same love that made him rush to her apartment that night with the urgency of a man ready to walk through fire. But justice wasn't only unfolding in courtrooms. It unfolded in the quiet decisions Robert made each day. He attended every meeting with her lawyer, every therapy appointment when she needed moral support. He cooked meals when she was too tired to stand. He rocked Noah to sleep on evenings when headaches struck her from the concussion. And every night, he placed a small nightlight in the hallway, just bright enough so Emma wouldn't wake in darkness. Because he remembered how darkness had been used against her. Yet, beneath his calm exterior, worry simmered. One afternoon, Emma found him gripping the edge of the kitchen counter, staring out the window with a heaviness she had never seen before. "Dad?" she asked gently. He cleared his throat. "You know I'd do anything for you, right?" She nodded. "I know. There's something else." He hesitated. "Michael called me." Emma froze. What did he say?" "He wanted me to convince you to drop the charges. He said he was sorry, said his job loss was punishment enough." Emma felt a coldness settle into her chest. "And what did you tell him?" Robert's voice lowered. steady and unwavering. I told him he'd never get near you or Noah again, and if he tried, the law and I would be waiting. Emma swallowed, overwhelmed not with fear but with gratitude. "Dad?" she whispered, stepping closer. "Thank you for everything." He took her hand gently. "You're my daughter. Your safety is my purpose. And this time, I won't let anything slip through the cracks." A tear slipped down Emma's cheek, not from pain but from the powerful sense of being protected, finally, wholly. Because a father's justice isn't loud, it's relentless, and Robert Miller had only just begun. The courthouse in downtown Newark stood tall and austere, its stone pillars rising against the winter sky like silent sentinels. Emma had driven past it many times in her younger years, but never imagined she would one day walk through its heavy doors seeking protection for herself and her child. The morning of the hearing, she stood at the entrance holding Noah's stroller with one hand and her father's steady arm with the other. Her breath puffed into the cold air, nerves buzzing beneath her skin, but her steps were firm. She wasn't the same woman who once whispered apologies to keep peace. She was here to speak truth, no matter how deeply it trembled inside her. Inside, the courthouse was bustling. Lawyers in crisp suits, families whispering anxiously, security officers guiding people toward assigned rooms. Emma walked through the metal detector, her heart pounding faster with each echoing footstep. Her attorney, a soft-spoken woman named Marissa, greeted her near a wooden bench. "You ready?" she asked gently. Emma nodded. "I think so." Her father adjusted Noah's stroller blankets. "We're right here with you." They entered the courtroom as the clerk prepared the docket, flipping through files, calling names. Emma glanced across the aisle. There stood Michael, hair neatly combed, wearing a tailored navy suit he must have retrieved from storage. He looked smaller somehow, muted, the confidence drained from his expression. Beside him was his attorney, whispering instructions. But even from across the room, Emma could see the flicker of anger beneath Michael's forced composure. He couldn't control this space. He couldn't rewrite the narrative here. And that terrified him. When the judge entered, everyone rose. Emma's pulse thudded in her ears as she lowered herself back into her seat. The judge reviewed the file briefly, brow tightening as she read the assault report, the statements, the evidence. Marissa stood first. "Your Honor, my client is requesting a permanent restraining order, full custody of the child, and acknowledgement of the physical assault documented by medical professionals." Michael's attorney rose quickly. "Your Honor, Mr. Carter disputes the claim that he intentionally harmed his wife. He asserts it was an accident." The judge raised a hand. "I've read the police report and the evidence provided. I'll hear directly from Mrs. Carter." Emma swallowed hard and stood. The entire room fell quiet. She felt the weight of every eye, but she lifted her chin. She told the truth, slowly, steadily, carefully. She spoke of the verbal abuse, the control, the nights filled with fear. She recounted the night of the incident, the shove, the fall, Noah's screams, the blood. She didn't embellish, didn't dramatize. She let the truth speak for itself. Her voice wavered when she described trying to protect Noah while her vision blurred. Her father's jaw tightened, his knuckles whitening on the stroller handle. But Emma continued. She owed this to herself, to Noah, to every version of her that had stayed silent. Then Marissa played the hallway audio. The courtroom shifted. Several people looked at Michael sharply. His attorney stiffened, lips pressed into a thin line. Next came the video call audio. Ava's worried voice, the argument, the crash. The judge's expression darkened. Michael's attorney attempted damage control. "Your Honor, my client regrets raising his voice, but this was a domestic dispute, not an assault." The judge interrupted. "Mr. Carter, do you understand that your actions endangered both your wife and your infant child?" Michael stood, desperation creeping into his voice. "She slipped. I didn't push her. She's exaggerating." Emma felt a cold wave rush through her, but she didn't look away. The judge tapped her pen sharply. "The evidence says otherwise, and your behavior, both in the reports and in this courtroom, speaks volumes." Silence fell. Then the judge delivered the words Emma had waited months, years to hear. "Permanent protective order granted. Full custody awarded to Mrs. Carter. Mr. Carter is restricted from any physical or indirect contact until further evaluation. Additionally, the court recognizes the assault as credible and supported by evidence." Emma exhaled, shoulders shaking. Not from fear, but from liberation. Her father placed a firm hand on her back. Noah babbled softly from his stroller, blissfully unaware that his world had just been secured. Michael sank into his chair, face pale, hands trembling. The power he clung to so tightly slipped from his grip in an instant. There was no charm to shield him, no lie strong enough to hide behind. As Emma walked out of the courtroom, sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting a warm glow across the marble floor. She paused, letting it wash over her. It felt like stepping out of a long storm into clear air. Because justice hadn't just been served, it had freed her. And she wasn't done rising. In the weeks following the court victory, Emma felt as if she were learning how to live again. Not just survive, not tiptoe around someone's temper, not measure every word before speaking, but truly live. The air in her father's townhouse seemed lighter. Mornings were warm with the smell of coffee, the gentle hum of a local news station, and Noah's babbling as he discovered new sounds each day. Emma woke with purpose instead of dread, slowly stitching her life together, one step at a time. Her therapist encouraged her to set small goals, nothing overwhelming, nothing tied to Michael's shadow. So she started simple. She took morning walks with Noah, tracing familiar routes around the neighborhood. She reconnected with colleagues at her firm in Manhattan, attending virtual meetings at first, then slowly stepping back into her role. Her manager welcomed her warmly. "Take all the time you need," he told her. "You're valued here." Those words were healing in ways she hadn't expected. Michael had spent years making her feel irrelevant, but here she was, seen, appreciated, capable. One crisp afternoon, Emma sat by the Hudson River, with Noah bundled in her lap. She watched the water ripple under the sunlight, feeling the breeze brush gently against her cheeks. She opened a notebook, one she had bought at Barnes & Noble on impulse, and began writing goals for her new life. Simple things at first. Find a preschool for Noah. Start saving for a small apartment. Cook dinner with joy again. Read at least one book a month. Allow happiness without guilt. As she wrote, her chest tightened, not from fear, but from quiet hope. These weren't dreams tied to survival. These were dreams tied to growth. One evening, Daniel stopped by with a warm casserole in hand, smiling shyly the way he always did. "Thought you might be tired after work," he said. Emma invited him in, and they sat around the small dining table her father had refinished years ago. The house smelled like roasted vegetables and comfort. Daniel told her stories about architecture projects he was designing, about raising his daughter, about the small victories in life that often went unnoticed. Emma found herself laughing softly, really laughing for the first time in months. Daniel watched her with gentle admiration. "It's good to see you smile," he said. She looked down at her plate, cheeks warming. "It's good to feel like I can." Over the next few days, their connection grew stronger. He didn't rush anything. He didn't pressure her. He simply created a safe place where she could breathe easily. She began to trust him. Not with her trauma, not with her wounds, but with the quiet moments in between. And sometimes, that was even more intimate. While Emma blossomed, Michael unraveled further. News reached her that he was struggling to find stable work. His reputation was tarnished beyond repair, and companies hesitated to hire someone facing assault charges. His eviction from the temporary apartment came quickly. But Emma refused to let his downfall poison her peace. Her father often checked updates, but she asked him for only the information necessary for Noah's safety. One night, as a winter rain tapped softly against the windows, Emma sat curled on the living room sofa, reading a chapter from Women Who Run with the Wolves. Her father sat across from her, polishing an old photo frame. The atmosphere felt gentle, almost sacred. She suddenly closed the book and looked at him. "Dad, I'm thinking of getting my own place." He paused, brows lifting. "Already?" Emma nodded. "I think it's time. I want Noah to see me stand on my own 2 feet. Her father's eyes softened with pride and a hint of sadness. "You're ready," he said quietly. "I knew this day would come." He wasn't losing her. He was watching her rise. Over the next few weeks, Emma toured apartments. Small ones, cozy ones, places with sunlight streaming through the windows, places where she could picture Noah taking his first steps. She finally found a second-floor unit overlooking a small park, with polished hardwood floors and enough space for a fresh start. When she signed the lease, she felt her heart swell. Not with fear, not with uncertainty, but with triumph. She carried Noah into the empty living room, spinning slowly. "Welcome home, my love," she whispered. And Noah laughed, pure, sweet, unburdened. Because Emma wasn't just rebuilding a life, she was building a future. One she owned completely. Emma stood in the doorway of her new apartment, holding the keys in her hand as though they were something sacred, something she had earned through every tear, every sleepless night, every moment she had chosen to stand instead of fall. The place was quiet, sunlit, and smelled faintly of fresh paint. It wasn't big or fancy like the Hudson View apartment she once shared with Michael, but it was hers. Every inch, every corner, every silent moment within it belonged to her and Noah. No guilt, no fear, no walking on eggshells, just possibility. Her father carried Noah inside while Daniel followed with the first box. "Feels good in here," Daniel said, smiling as he placed the box gently on the floor. Bright, safe. Safe. That word echoed in her chest like a soft bell. The living room had a wide window overlooking a small park where families walked dogs and children squealed on swings. The hardwood floors glowed warmly under the light. A tiny hallway branched into 2 bedrooms, one for her, one for Noah. The kitchen was modest, but when Emma stepped inside, she imagined cooking in peace again, stirring soups while Noah played beside her, maybe even laughing with someone who treated her heart gently instead of tearing it down. They spent the morning assembling furniture. Her father built Noah's crib with practiced hands. "You sure you don't want me here the first few nights?" he asked for the 8th time. Emma smiled softly. "Dad, I'm ready." He studied her for a long moment, eyes glistening with both pride and the ache of watching his little girl step fully into her new life. "Okay, but I'll be by tomorrow morning. And the next morning." "I know," she said warmly. "That's why I love you." Daniel helped her set up the living room shelves, lifting heavy boxes with ease. At one point, he paused and picked up a framed picture Emma placed near the window, her wedding photo, the last trace of a life she no longer wanted hanging over her. "You don't have to keep this," he said quietly, giving her space to choose. Emma looked at the framed image, the forced smile, the hand Michael held too tightly, the promise she once believed in so fiercely. She took a slow breath, then gently set the photo face down in a donation box. "I think I'm ready to let that go," she whispered. Daniel nodded, not speaking, just respecting the quiet courage of the moment. By afternoon, the apartment had transformed. Noah's laughter echoed in his tiny room as he crawled on the soft rug her father bought. Sunlight streamed through the living room window, painting warm stripes across the floor. Emma unpacked her books, placing Atomic Habits, Healing After Trauma, and Women Who Run with the Wolves neatly on her bedside table, symbols of her journey back to herself. While she arranged utensils in the kitchen, Daniel leaned against the counter, watching her with gentle admiration. "You know," he said softly, "you're one of the strongest people I've ever met." Emma looked up, a little surprised. "I don't always feel strong." "That's exactly what makes you strong," he replied. Their eyes met, warm, steady, unhurried. There was a softness there, a tenderness that didn't demand but quietly offered. Emma felt her heart shift, opening slowly like a flower in early spring. She wasn't ready for something new. Not fully, but she wasn't afraid of the possibility either. After dinner, her father kissed her forehead and hugged Noah tight before heading home. Daniel stayed behind to finish tightening the last bolts on Noah's crib. When he finally gathered his tools and prepared to leave, he approached her at the door. "You call me if you need anything," he said. "I will." He hesitated, then brushed her hand lightly. Not a claim, not a request, just a gentle reminder that she wasn't alone. "I'm really proud of you, Emma." She felt warmth bloom in her chest. "Thank you, Daniel." When he left, the apartment grew quiet. Emma walked slowly into Noah's room, watching him sleep peacefully, cheeks rosy, breathing soft and steady. She brushed a curl from his forehead and whispered, "We're home, baby. We're finally home." Then she stepped into her own bedroom, looked around the cozy space she had shaped with courage, and felt tears rise. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that she had rebuilt herself from the ground up. Because this wasn't just a new address. It was a new life, and Emma was finally ready to live it. The first night in her new apartment was quieter than Emma expected. After tucking Noah into his crib and turning on the soft glow of the nightlight, she lingered in the doorway, listening to his gentle breaths. The silence felt different, lighter, more open. No footsteps pacing with anger, no slammed doors, no whispered apologies to avoid conflict. This silence didn't frighten her. It welcomed her, like a warm blanket wrapping around her shoulders. She made a cup of chamomile tea and sat on the living room floor among half-opened boxes. A soft breeze drifted through the cracked window, carrying faint laughter from families in the park below. She took a slow sip, knees pulled to her chest, letting her body unwind inch by inch. For the first time in years, she didn't have to anticipate anyone's mood. She didn't have to protect herself from accusations. Her body, once always on alert, finally began to relax. A buzz from her phone broke the quiet moment. It was a message from Daniel. "Just checking in. Did you and Noah settle in okay?" Emma smiled faintly. She typed back, "We're good. Thank you again for everything today." Seconds later, he replied, "You did all the hard work, Emma. I just carried boxes." She set the phone aside, warmth spreading through her chest. Not romantic, not rushed, but gentle, respectful, safe. She wasn't looking for love. She wasn't ready for anything big. But the simple comfort of someone checking on her without wanting anything in return stirred something inside her. Something small but real. Over the next week, Emma settled into a new routine. She woke early, made oatmeal while Noah played with wooden blocks on the kitchen floor, and logged into work from her dining table. Her coworkers sent supportive messages, easing her transition back. Some afternoons, she walked with Noah through the park, stopping at a nearby cafe for a warm latte. The barista learned her name, talked gently to Noah, and welcomed her with a smile each visit. Life felt normal, beautifully normal. One Thursday evening, Daniel stopped by with groceries. "You mentioned you haven't had time to stock up," he said, lifting the paper bags onto the counter. "You didn't have to do that," Emma said, touched. "I know," he replied, shrugging softly. "But I wanted to." They cooked together, moving around the little kitchen with surprising ease. Emma chopped vegetables while Daniel simmered sauce on the stove. Their conversations flowed effortlessly. Memories from childhood, dreams for the future, silly stories about Noah's newfound obsession with banging toys on the floor. At one point, Daniel leaned against the counter, studying her quietly. "You look happier," he said. Emma paused. "I feel lighter." He nodded. "Good, you deserve that." A long, comfortable silence followed, not awkward, not charged, just peaceful. After dinner, they sat on the living room rug while Noah crawled between them, tugging at Daniel's sleeve. Daniel laughed and let the baby pull at his shirt, making playful faces that made Noah squeal in delight. The sound filled the room like music. Emma watched them, heart swelling. Noah trusted Daniel. That meant more than anything. As the evening grew late, Daniel helped Emma clean the kitchen. When he walked her to the door, he hesitated. "Emma, I don't want to rush anything. I know you've been through more than anyone should, but I want you to know." She looked up, her breath catching. "You can trust me," he finished softly, "whenever you're ready." Emma didn't speak at first. She stepped closer, gently squeezing his hand, not a promise, not a commitment, but an acknowledgement. A step. "Thank you," she whispered. After he left, she locked the door, leaned back against it, and let out a shaky breath. Not from fear. No, this was something else. Something hopeful. She walked to Noah's crib, watching him sleep peacefully. She brushed a hand over his tiny back and whispered, "Mommy's learning to trust again." Because healing wasn't just about letting go of the past, it was about allowing good things to enter her life again, slowly, gently, at her own pace. For several peaceful weeks, Emma allowed herself to believe the worst was behind her. Her new apartment grew cozier each day as she added small touches. Soft curtains, a thrifted lamp, framed photos of her and Noah smiling under the sunlight. She found comfort in her new routines, felt safer with every passing morning. Daniel's kindness, her father's constant support, and the quiet rhythms of motherhood filled her life with gentle hope. But trauma often waited for quiet moments to resurface. And sometimes, so did danger. It started subtly. A message request on her social media from an unfamiliar account. "You think you won?" This isn't over. No name, no profile picture, but she knew exactly who sent it. Her hands trembled as she blocked the account immediately. She told herself it wasn't Michael, that the restraining order kept him away, but the knot in her stomach twisted tightly. She checked on Noah twice before bed that night, kissed his forehead, and sat awake longer than she intended, listening to the steady hum of the refrigerator and the faint traffic outside. The next day at work, she received an email from an unknown address. No text, just a photo of her leaving the courthouse weeks earlier. Her breath caught. She closed her laptop quickly, her pulse thumping in her ears. She waited for panic to crash into her, but instead a familiar determination rose through her chest. She called her father immediately. "I'm coming over," he said without hesitation. "Don't open the door for anyone." He arrived within minutes, eyes scanning every corner of the hallway before stepping inside. "He's trying to rattle you," Robert said calmly. "He wants you scared." Emma swallowed hard. "It's working." Her father placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "But you're not alone, and you're not powerless." Still, the anxiety lingered. Old fears resurfaced in the shadows of her new beginning. She double-checked her locks, peered through the peephole before opening the door, and kept the curtains closed at night. The trauma she worked so hard to heal began knocking again. Daniel noticed the change. One evening, as he joined her and Noah for a simple pasta dinner, he watched her fidget with her hands, glancing toward the front door more than usual. "What's going on?" he asked softly. Emma hesitated. She didn't want to drag him into her storm. But Daniel wasn't a storm. He was steadiness, safety. She exhaled shakily and told him everything. When she finished, Daniel didn't react with outrage or panic. Instead, he leaned forward, voice calm but firm. "Emma, you don't have to handle this alone. Let me help." "I don't want you getting involved," she whispered. "Part of me just wants to disappear again. Part of me feels like he'll never stop finding ways to hurt me." Daniel shook his head gently. "You're not disappearing. You're rebuilding. And people who rebuild attract attention, both good and bad. But you're not the woman he used to control. You're stronger now. He knows it. That's why he's trying to scare you." His words slid into her chest like warm light. Later that night, after Daniel left, Emma stood by the window, watching snowflakes drift under a street lamp. Noah slept soundly, lulled by the soft hum of a white noise machine. The apartment felt safe, but fear still lingered like a faint shadow. Her phone buzzed again. She froze. But this time it wasn't a message. It was a security system notification. The camera outside her door detected motion. Her breath hitched as she opened the app, heart pounding. A blurry figure stood at the far end of the hallway, watching her door from a distance before quickly turning away. Her chest tightened. Her fingers trembled. She whispered, "Not again, please, not again." She immediately called her father. "Dad, someone was here, outside my door." "I'm coming now," he said. "Keep Noah close." Emma locked every latch, every bolt, every chain. She sat on the floor with Noah sleeping in her arms, her heart pounding. This wasn't just a message anymore. This was a warning. And as fear crept back into her life, Emma realized something terrifying. Michael wasn't finished. Not yet. Robert arrived at Emma's apartment in less than 10 minutes, still wearing his old police jacket, the one he hadn't worn in years but kept in the closet, just in case. When she opened the door, his eyes immediately scanned the hallway, his posture shifting into protective instinct. He stepped inside only after ensuring no one lingered nearby. "Show me the camera footage," he said. Emma pulled it up with trembling hands. The video replayed, a shadowy figure standing far back near the stairwell, unmoving, watching. Not close enough to reveal a face, but close enough to send panic through her bones. Her father's jaw clenched. "It's him." Emma wrapped her arms around herself. "How did he find me? He's not allowed within 100 yards. "He didn't come to your door," Robert replied carefully. "He stayed just far enough to avoid obvious violation. He's testing boundaries, seeing if you'll break." Emma closed her eyes. "Dad, I can't go through this again." He placed both hands on her shoulders. "You won't. Not this time." He called the police immediately, and within the hour, 2 officers arrived to take statements. They reviewed the footage, asked questions, and assured her they'd increase patrol in the area. But Emma saw the hesitation in their eyes. The figure wasn't clear enough for an arrest. It was circumstantial, and Michael knew exactly how to play at the edges of the law. After the officers left, Emma sat on the couch holding Noah while her father paced. "I don't like this," he muttered. "I don't like him out there, watching, waiting." Emma swallowed a sob. "I moved here to start fresh, to be safe. "You are safe," Robert said firmly. "You're not alone. You have the law. You have me. You have Daniel." Just then, a knock sounded at the door. Emma stiffened, clutching Noah against her chest as adrenaline surged. Robert stepped forward, hand raised to signal silence. He peered through the peephole, then relaxed slightly. "It's Daniel." Emma opened the door, breath shaky. Daniel's expression shifted instantly when he saw her pale face and the officer's lingering presence downstairs. "Emma, what happened?" She told him everything. The message, the email, the figure in the hallway. Daniel listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening. When she finished, he placed a steady hand on her back. "I'm not leaving you alone tonight." Emma shook her head. "Daniel, you don't have to." "I know I don't," he said softly. "I want to." Her father didn't object. He saw what Emma felt but didn't say aloud. She didn't want to face the night trembling in the dark. They stayed together in the living room as hours passed. Robert took the armchair, Daniel sat beside Emma on the couch, and Noah slept safely in her arms. The apartment lights stayed on, casting steady warmth across the room. Every sound from the hallway made her flinch, but Daniel's presence grounded her. Calm, solid, unshakable. Around midnight, her father received a call from the precinct. He stepped into the kitchen to answer. When he returned, his face was serious. They located Michael's car parked 2 blocks from the complex, engine still warm. He was nearby. Emma's breath caught, tears filling her eyes. "So it was him," Robert nodded. "They're searching the area now. Stay calm." But staying calm felt impossible. Every muscle in her body tightened. All the progress she'd made, the healing, the hope, the sense of freedom felt suddenly at risk. She clutched Noah, whispering softly, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." Daniel leaned closer. "Emma, look at me." She lifted her eyes to his. "You are not going back to who you were," he said gently. "He's losing control. That's why he's trying to scare you. But you're stronger than him now. Stronger than his threats. And we're here. We're not letting anything happen to you." His voice steadied her heartbeat, just a little. By 2 a.m., the police called again. They hadn't found Michael, but his car was impounded. They advised Emma to stay with someone overnight, but she refused to leave her new home, the home she fought so hard to build. So they stayed. All 3 of them. A quiet vigil through the night. Outside, wind pushed against the windows, but inside, Emma felt a fragile strength rising again, fueled not by fear but by love. Her father's unwavering devotion, Daniel's gentle courage, and the tiny heartbeat sleeping against her chest. Because if Michael wanted a war, he was about to learn this time. Emma wasn't fighting it alone. The sun hadn't risen yet when Emma finally drifted into a light, uneasy sleep. She'd been resting on the couch, Noah in her arms, Daniel close enough to keep watch, her father sitting upright in the armchair like a soldier guarding a post. Morning light crept slowly across the apartment walls, golden and soft, as though the city were offering her a fragile promise. You made it through the night. But the peace didn't last long. At 7:12 a.m., a loud knock rattled the front door, sharp, urgent, unmistakable. Emma jolted awake, heart pounding. Daniel stood instantly. Her father moved toward the door, motioning for silence. He peered through the peephole. A breath of relief left him. "It's the police." Emma exhaled shakily as Robert opened the door. 2 uniformed officers stood in the hallway, their expressions serious. "Mrs. Carter," the lead officer said gently, "we located your husband." Emma's grip tightened on Noah. "Where?" "He was hiding near the back of your building complex. When officers approached, he tried to flee. He's now in custody and will be held without bail, pending further charges." The words washed over her slowly like warm water after a winter storm. Relief hit her so hard she almost couldn't breathe. Her shoulders sagged as a weight she'd carried for years suddenly lifted. Daniel stepped beside her, one hand gently touching her back. Her father asked the questions she couldn't. What charges? Violation of the protective order, stalking, attempted intimidation, and due to his previous case, this will hold significant consequences. Emma swallowed hard. "So he won't come near us again?" "No, ma'am," the officer replied firmly. "He won't be bothering you anymore." A trembling sigh escaped her lips, half sob, half relief. She held Noah closer, kissing the top of his head. Her father closed his eyes for a moment, as if thanking the universe for delivering the justice he'd prayed for. Daniel sat beside Emma, his voice low, steady. "It's over," he whispered. "You're safe now." Emma nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks, quiet, grateful tears. Not tears of fear, tears of release, tears of freedom. The officers left, and the apartment returned to stillness. Morning light filled the room, warm and steady. Emma stood near the window, watching children running in the park below, their laughter floating up like music. She felt the last pieces of fear fade from her chest. Her father stepped beside her. "Honey, you did it, you fought back, and you won." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "I didn't do it alone." Later that afternoon, she took Noah for a walk through the park. Snow from the previous night glimmered like tiny diamonds across the grass. Parents pushed strollers, dogs chased each other, and the world felt normal again. Beautifully, incredibly normal. Daniel joined her, walking quietly beside her. They didn't speak at first. They didn't need to. The simplicity of the moment was enough. After a while, he asked softly, "How do you feel?" Emma looked at the sky, clear, bright, endless. "Free," she said. "For the first time in a long time, free." Daniel smiled, a warm, gentle smile that reached his eyes. "Good. You deserve that and so much more." They reached a bench overlooking the playground and sat down. Noah giggled in Emma's arms as Daniel wiggled his fingers playfully. Emma watched them, her heart swelling in ways she never thought possible again. "Daniel," she said quietly, "I don't know where life will go from here, but I want to walk toward it without fear." He nodded, eyes soft. "And you won't walk alone, not if you don't want to." Emma took a breath, steady and strong. "I don't want to." The wind brushed softly against her hair as she leaned gently against his shoulder. In that moment, she understood something powerful. The story of her life wasn't defined by the pain she survived, but by the courage she found afterward. She kissed Noah's forehead and whispered, "We made it, baby. Mommy made it." And with the city stretching wide before her, the skyline glowing, the park alive, the future open, Emma stepped fully into the life she fought for. A life built on healing, safety, and love, born slowly, gently, honestly. Because Emma Carter didn't just escape the darkness. She rose from it, stronger than ever, and walked fearlessly into a future she finally believed she deserved. So, our story has finally come to an end. And if you're still here, right now, reading these words, then something in Emma's journey has touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength, or someone you love, or a moment you thought you'd never rise from. Emma's story teaches us that healing isn't loud. It isn't overnight. It's a series of small, brave choices. Choosing safety, choosing truth, choosing yourself. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Emma discovered that strength step by step, and so can we. Life will knock us down. People will disappoint us. Fear will return when we least expect it. But like the Stoics remind us, what stands in the way becomes the way. Every challenge becomes a doorway to a new beginning if we keep moving forward with courage. So, my wonderful friend who stayed until the very end, if this story touched you, if it made you feel seen or understood, then don't leave quietly. Hit like, share this video with someone who needs strength today, and subscribe to the channel so you never walk this journey alone. We're here for you. Always.